Section 2 of Sun, Moon, and Stars, Astronomy for Beginners. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Sun, Moon, and Stars by Agnes Giberne. Section 2. The Head of Our Family. The sun which rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. Psalms 19, verses 4 and 5. People began very early in the history of the world to pay close attention to the sun. And no wonder. We owe him so much to his heat and light that the marvel would be if men had not thought much about him. Was the sun really any larger than he looked? And if so, how much larger was he? And what was his distance from the earth? These were two of the questions which puzzled our ancestors the longest. If once they could have settled exactly how far off the sun really was, they could easily have calculated his exact size. But this was just what they could not do. So one man supposed that the sun must be quite near and very little larger than he looked. Another thought he must be 75 miles in diameter. A third ventured to believe that he was larger than the country of Greece. A fourth was so bold as to imagine that he might even outweigh the earth herself. After a while, many attempts were made to measure the distance of the sun, and a great many different answers to this difficult question were given by different men, most of them very wide of the mark. It is only of late years that the matter has been clearly settled, and indeed it was found quite lately that a mistake of no less than 3 millions of miles had been made, notwithstanding all the care and all the attention given. But though 3 millions of miles sounds a great deal, yet it is really very little, only a tiny portion of the whole. For the distance of the sun from the earth is no less than about 92 millions of miles. 92 millions of miles! Can you picture that to yourself? Try to think what is meant by 1,000 miles. Our earth is 8,000 miles in diameter. In other words, if you were to thrust a gigantic knitting needle through her body from the North Pole to the South Pole, it would have to be about 8,000 miles long. To reach the thought of 1 million, you must picture 1,000 times 1,000. Our Earth is about 25,000 miles round. If you were to start from the mouth of the river Amazon in South America and journey straight round the whole Earth on the equator till you came back to the same point, you would have traveled about 25,000 miles. But that would be a very long way from 1 million miles. You would have gone only once round the Earth. Now a rope 1 million miles in length could be wrapped, not only once, but 40 times, round and round the earth. And when you have managed to reach up to the thought of 1 million miles, you have then to remember that the sun's distance is 92 times as much again. So to picture clearly to ourselves the actual meaning of 92 millions of miles is not easy. Suppose it were possible to lay a railroad from here to the sun. If you could journey thither in a perfectly straight line at the rate of 30 miles an hour, never pausing for one single minute, night or day, you would reach the sun in just about 350 years. 30 miles an hour is a slow train. Suppose we double the speed and make it an express train, rushing along at the pace of 60 miles an hour. Then you might hope to reach the end of your journey in 175 years. If you had quitted this earth early in the reign of King George I, never stopping on your way, you would be just now, in the year 1893, arriving at the sun. So much for the sun's distance from us. Now as to his size. I have already mentioned that our Earth's diameter, that is, her through measure, as for instance the line drawn straight from England through her center to New Zealand, is about 8,000 miles. This sounds a good deal, but what do you think of the diameter of the sun being no less than 865,000 miles? The one is 8,000 miles, the other is 800,000 miles. Suppose you had a long, slender pole which would pass through the middle of the earth, one end just showing at the North Pole and the other at the South Pole. You would need more than 108 of such poles, all joined together to show the diameter of the sun. The sun seems not to be made of nearly such heavy materials as the earth. He is what astronomers call less dense, less close and compact in his make, just as wood is less dense and heavy than iron. Still, his size is so enormous that if you could have a pair of gigantic scales and put the sun into one scale and the earth with every one of her brother and sister planets into the other, the sun's side would go down like lightning. He would be found to weigh 750 times as much as all the rest put together. It would take more than 1,200 thousands of little Earths like ours rolled into one huge ball to make a globe as large as the sun. Suppose our Earth were to dwindle down and down, smaller and smaller, till she became a tiny globe only 1 inch in diameter. Imagine the sun at the same time dwindling down in the same manner and keeping the same proportion as to size. Keeping the same proportion means that he would still be 1,200,000 times as large as the Earth, that his axis, or the straight line through his center from North Pole to South Pole, would still be 108 times as long as the Earth's axis. Then, side by side with the minute ball, 1 inch in diameter, you would see a great globe 9 feet in diameter, half as high again as a tall man. And if you wish to gain a fair notion not only of the sun's size, but of his distance from us, set such a 9-feet globe in a field and move slowly round it, 1 inch ball at a distance of 320 yards. This may help you to understand. In the beginning of the 17th century, a man named Fabricius was startled by the sight of a certain black spot on the face of the sun. He watched till too dazzled to look any longer, supposing it to be a small cloud, yet anxious to learn more. Next day the spot was there still, but it seemed to have moved on a little way. Morning after morning this movement was found to continue, and soon a second spot and then a third spot were observed creeping in like manner across the sun. After a while they vanished, one at a time, round his edge, as it were. But after some days of patient waiting on the part of the lookers-on, they appeared again at the opposite edge and once more began their journey across. Fabricius seems to have been the first, but he was not the last, to watch sunspots. Many astronomers have given close attention to them. Modern telescopes and the modern plan of looking at the sun through darkened glass have made this possible in a way that was not possible 200 or 300 years ago. The first important discovery made through the spots on the sun was that the sun turns round upon his axis just in the same manner that the Earth turns round upon hers. Instead of doing so once in the course of each 24 hours like the Earth, he turns once in the course of about 25 days. It must not be supposed that the spots seen now upon the sun are the same spots that Fabricius saw in the reign of our James I. There is perpetual change going on, new spots forming, old spots vanishing, one spot breaking into two spots joining into one, and so on. Even in a single hour, great alterations are sometimes seen to take place. Still, many of the spots do remain long enough and keep their shapes closely enough to be watched from day to day, and to be known again as old friends when they reappear after being about 12 days hidden on the other side of the sun. So that the turning of the sun upon his axis has become, after long and careful examination, a certain fact. For more than 30 years, one astronomer kept close watch over the spots on every day that it was possible to see the sun. Much was learned from his perseverance, and far more has been learned since. 2 or 3 months may be counted a fair medium length of time for a spot to endure, while one has been known to exist as long as 18 months. This, however, was exceptional. It seems pretty sure that these spots are caused by some kind of cyclones, great in extent and violence, on the surface of the sun. We do not yet know with absolute certainty whether the sun is through and through one vast mass of heated gases, but this is the opinion now generally held, and the older idea of a possibly solid and even cool interior is at present given up. The round shining disk or flat surface seen by all of us is called the photosphere, or light sphere. It has a tolerably well-defined edge or limb and dazzles the eye with its intense radiance. Of the photosphere, Professor Young writes, "All that we can learn as to the temperature and constitution of the sun makes it hardly less than certain that the visible surface, which is called the photosphere, is just a sheet of self-luminous cloud, precisely like the clouds of our own atmosphere, with the exception that the droplets of water, which constitute terrestrial clouds, are replaced in the sun by drops of molten metal, and that the solar atmosphere in which they float is the flame of a burning fiery furnace, raging with a fury and intensity beyond all human conception." And again, "The photosphere is a shell of luminous clouds formed by the cooling and condensation of the condensable vapors at the surface, where exposed to the cold of outer space." Of course, the words cooling and cold are comparative terms only in reference to such a neighborhood. Outside the photosphere lies the chromosphere, or chromatosphere, or Sierra. This, seen at the edge of the sun against the sky, has been described as a quivering fringe of fire. And since the sun turns incessantly upon his axis, presenting each hour fresh portions of his surface in that position, it follows that the whole surface of the sun is one restless, billowy ocean of fire. The waves of the sea on a stormy day, perceived in the far distance, rising and breaking on the horizon line, may serve as a tiny illustration only that in the sun the billows are of fire, not water. Think what their height must be that they should be thus visible, even through a telescope, at a distance of nearly 93 millions of miles. It is believed that the chromosphere is formed of such gases, chiefly hydrogen, as refuse to be condensed into the molten clouds which form the photosphere. Sun, as well as Earth, possesses an atmosphere, but it is an atmosphere very different in description, not fitted like ours to support life, not shallow and quiet, but an envelope of matter, partly gaseous and partly perhaps pulverulent or smoke-like, many thousand miles in depth, and always most profoundly and violently agitated. Outside the chromosphere are to be seen bright rose-colored prominences, extraordinary protuberant shapes of enormous size, though dwindled down to smallness by distance. During an eclipse, when the dark body of the moon glides between the sun and us, exactly covering the photosphere and hiding its glare, these crimson jagged tips stand out distinctly beyond the edge of sun and moon. Once upon a time they could be seen only at such seasons, during the brief space of a total eclipse. But the spectroscope now enables astronomers to see them in full daylight. Careful watching for hours together has thus become possible, not to speak of photographing. They are found to be prolongulations of the red chromosphere, that sea of glowing gas which bathes the whole body of the sun. They too consist of gas, mainly of hydrogen gas, rising like enormous mountain billows out of that fiery ocean. Flames they are often called, though not consuming flames like those which burn away substances in our earthly atmosphere, but rather continuously glowing masses of gas, luminous with vehement heat. The height of these prominences has been repeatedly measured. Some are so lofty that 10 little earths such as ours might be heaped up one upon the other without reaching the top. One was seen to tower to the extent of 300,000 miles, an outrush of radiant gas from the sun almost incredible. Diagram 39. Orbits of the planets. This is a line diagram with 9 concentric circles. Starting with the sun at the very center and moving out, we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, minor planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and diagonally an oval crosses all of those circles that is labeled Halley's Comet. End of diagram. Outside the prominences lies the corona, a beautiful crown of soft light, plainly visible to the naked eye during an eclipse. Some of the streamers of this mysterious surrounding crown, or atmosphere, reach to a distance of 1,000,000 miles. Little is yet known as to its true nature and use. To return to the subject of sunspots, although we cannot yet speak positively as to the constitution of the sun, we can at least say that he is a vast center of light and heat, and a scene of terrific storms beyond anything we have ever seen on this quiet little earth of ours. Certainly no such thing as quietness may be found there. The wildest and fiercest turmoil of fire and hurricane prevails unceasingly, and when the blazing surface is torn open, darker though still fiery depths seem to be exposed, becoming apparent as spots to us in our distant world. Beside the dark spots, there are also spots of dazzling brilliance, standing out upon even that radiant background. Such extra bright spots, which come and go, and at times change their form with great rapidity, are named facula, a Latin word meaning torches. It sounds to us startling to read of jets of fire and smoke from Mount Vesuvius, 10,000 feet in height, or of a river of lava in Iceland pouring in an unbroken stream for 50 miles, but what shall be thought of tongues of glowing hydrogen mounting to a height of 100,000 or 200,000 miles above the sun's surface? What shall be thought of a solar plane long enough to be folded 3 or 4 times around our solid Earth? What shall be thought of the awful rush of incandescent gases borne along at a rate of 1 or 2 or even 300 miles in a second? What shall be thought of the vast rents in this raging ocean, rents often from 50 to 100,000 miles across? 50,000 miles! A mere speck seen from Earth, scarcely visible without a telescope, yet large enough to contain 7 worlds like ours, flung in together. One of the bigger spots measured was so enormous that 18 Earths might have been laid in a row across the breadth of it, and to have filled up the entire hole about 100 Earths would have been necessary. Only, in speaking of a hole, we must not picture a cavern with solid walls and floor. If a sunspot be a hollow at all, which it is not certain, it is a hollow framed and walled by glowing gases in a state of inconceivable turmoil, heat, and fury. End of section 2. Read by Annie Ryder.